seconds to load, and then we can go ahead.
Okay.
All right, I think we are live. Let me double check. Second. Oh, okay, perfect. I think we're on. I do apologize. This is my first time doing a YouTube live session on Zoom, but thank you for bearing with me, Mohammed. So awesome, we'll get started right away. The main premise behind a lot of these webinars for the people that are watching, looks like we've got a couple people already, and Walter, hi. The whole premise is less about industry specific terms, industry trends. Even myself as a vendor, obviously we like to push a lot of products, but it's about you. And we want to focus about each individual and what their journey is like and what are the things they're seeing. So it's going to be a very like improvised conversation. We have some topics we'll go through, and yeah, just really quick for everyone that's on the call, we've got Mohammed today. Mohammed Yahya. Mohammed and I, and actually in any team, we've talked for quite a while. And I mean, he's a really smart cookie. I mean, that's I can say in a very, very simple sense. Very, very smart guy. I think he has a lot to share. And yeah, Mohammed, welcome.
Yeah. First, I'm trying to be humble here. I'm not that smart. So yeah. Thank you, Charles, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm Mohammed from Gaza. You know, Gaza and Palestine. And I've been doing like a cloud operations like 5 years now. And I'm working now with Global DataNet, a Hamburg-based cloud native company. We are doing great stuff there. And I've been working with infrastructure as a code and AWS like 4 or 5 years now, and mainly interested with infrastructure as a code, just do everything with the code, like having your resources, your architect, your solution as a code base, read them as we all do with software. And yeah, I take a couple of certification like the Terraform and the AWS, and yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah, I've been helping communities back, especially on the module side, Terraform modules, also on Slack, like Sweet Ops. Shout out to these guys. These are awesome guys also. I'm there also helping anyone with Terraform. And yeah, I guess I on LinkedIn also, I most of the time just post Terraform links and stuff there. So yeah, that's me. That's how I'm doing daily. Yeah, daily work. Yeah.
So, I mean, let's start there. I mean, honestly, that what you just described, it sounds like you say it very casually, but honestly, for someone coming into cloud or cloud security, it's incredibly overwhelming. There's a lot of noise out there, right? Why did you get into cloud? Why did you get into cloud security? And like, what got you to get started? Like, can you kind of start there?
Yeah, good question. Actually, I've been working with IT and engineering from 2010. So I've been doing on-premise stuff for like 5 years before the cloud, movement thing. And I've been reach a level where everything, you just hit a wall with on-premise, right? So you do everything, but you cannot have the unlimited resources you are doing on cloud. And you're gonna be like, okay, I need to buy this, I need to have this, and you just keep hitting walls like a procurement. You cannot have this, you don't have the budget, you need a security team to help you, that stuff. So I've been, okay, what's the next step? So I take a look at the cloud and I see, okay, that's interesting. I need to move there, doing the stuff. And also being like architect on the premise, I think the cloud fascinated me with the high availability, fault tolerance, solution. So I found myself there. Then, we just use click and AWS CLI and, just everything manually. And then I learned Ansible for Terraform. And then Terraform came out, I guess, on 2014. And it was like very initial versions there. So that's where I hooked up, right? So I just, feel that I found myself with these, just Terraform templates and modules, and you have everything deployed and ready to use. So yeah, I guess that's it. So moving from on-premise to cloud, I'm one of these peoples that know how cloud is important for us, because I came from back the days on the premise, not like a new employee or a new one just want to go into the cloud. And security is like, I think it's the new standard now. So if you say DevOps, I think you just put a word inside that word, right? So I guess there is a joke about this. So you dare put a word between dev and ops, and everyone gonna kill you. So like DevSecOps, Dev Data Ops, whatever. So yeah, security is very important, and I guess automation is the new standard now. So whenever you automate your infrastructure, you need to automate your security operations, right? So that's where also I try to, okay, if I need to make everything automated on the cloud, I need to take care very seriously of the security part. So yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah.
So I have a story to share, and I have a very similar background to you, Mohammed. Honestly, I came from working with load balancers on premise.
Mhm.
I don't know if anyone even knows what they were back or what they are nowadays. Everything's elastic, but um, you know, there was a point in time where I had to implement in a large organization, and we had to go through certifications, security requirements, and just to get an auditor to look at our appliance and our software, it would take 3 to 4 months. And then they would come up with some stuff. And then we would have to fix it. 3 or 4 months later, they would come around and fix it. And I'm stuck here with a project that I thought, oh, it's easy. I understand their architecture. Technologically speaking, it should be done in maybe 3 weeks' time. I'm stuck for a 1 year implementation, and I gotta say, it's just so different, right? I came from that. I started looking into the cloud, actually more recent than you, but I have to say, like, exactly similar sentiments that you have. Like, things are just you're kind of outpacing the way that data centers operate and how teams operate with data centers. So I definitely agree that speed is one of those things. But you said something interesting, like 2015, you get into the cloud. 2015 versus 2021 is very different with what AWS offers. It is, I mean, you look at have you looked at the service catalog of AWS now? I mean, like,
Yeah, it's uh,
where do you
you
start,
can.
right?
Yeah. Actually, I just keep tracking of the change log, and the release notes.
Yeah,
That's a job. I guess that's a job.
yeah.
Yeah, full-time job just to know which services is deployed and created. Yeah, it's a full-time job now for people just to follow the release notes from AWS, right?
Yeah. What kept you going? Because, like, after a certain point, when you start playing with AWS, you say, okay, I get Lambda functions, I get EC2, I get IAM. Okay, what is all this other stuff that's coming into the picture now? What are SCS step functions? How do they work? How do I use them with my Lambda functions? What is an API gateway? What is CloudFront? What is all of this? Like, what got you continuing to learn more and more? Like, what helps you? What drives you there?
Actually, I learned AWS backwards. So I learned AWS from Terraform. I've been, just
Oh,
yeah, creating Terraform, AWS stuff with Terraform. So when I create a cloud front, I just learn it from Terraform. So how this is gonna work, how this is. So that's how I learn AWS, which is the hard way. And
Yeah.
just to spend long hours on the documentation of a service, right? So yeah, that's keep me going. And also the challenges for the solutions and the reference architect. So if you work with like by the way, I work with Gartner, if you know Gartner. So shout out to Flux 7, which acquired acquisition, I think, was on 2019 by NTT Data, which is like a big consultant provider, headquarter in Japan, actually. So they acquired Flux 7. And Flux 7 was like one of the US-based company that provide DevOps services. And for Gartner, I remember in 2017, there was no like this SaaS solution for Terraform, like Env0, Scalar, Spacelift, and
Yep.
all of these people wasn't there. So my first task with Gartner was to create a pipeline for Terraform to deploy resources on AWS. So there was nothing on Google, how to there was just Jenkins file everywhere, and you knew to figure out how to automate Terraform. And even I think before the auto approve flag on Terraform came out, so that was a challenging task for me. But I was happy that on reInvent they show some of the infrastructure pipeline on the AWS reInvent, I think 2017. So that's where if I can make something that goes on the reInvent for AWS, I must keep going. So that's what kept me going, actually. So yeah, that's one of the stories that I am very proud of. And then start moving on the pipeline. Yeah, that's where this pipeline should be like a basic for all of our offering to clients. And then starting looking at this pipeline, how can I improve it? And one of the missing piece was security there. So I need my pipeline to be secure and also to offer like security checks, compliance, all of these stuff. Just prevent developers from, just creating something on the security group like open ports or deploy ALB without HTTPS, this regular stuff. So that's yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just gonna ask,
Yeah.
why did you care about security? Like you have, there's so much you could go into. Why security?
I think it's the place that no one want to go to, right? So this is a room no one want to enter. So I guess I thought when we work with the 500 Fortune companies, these are the big names, and most of them are enterprises, and the most request feature from them was security. And then I thought, okay, if these people they are the pioneers on everything, right, on solutions and everything. So I guess, okay, they are focusing on security, which for true was missing from the pipeline piece for Terraform and infrastructure as a code. So that's why and also I reach a level with the pipeline with everything is working fine, notification, approval, pre-commit also was there, I guess. And just missing the secret checks from the pipeline there. Yeah, that's I guess it.
It's crazy because we talk about this in the world of 2017 and what you were thinking about, but now these are categories in Gartner, right? Like there's a category now for infrastructure as code compliance, and there's a category for Terraform management, and I think they're now calling themselves TechOps platforms, right?
Yeah.
I think it's awesome that you started on these before, us vendors started to say, oh, this is what it really is, right? It must be like being so early to this. How do you, it's on the one side, you can see where there's opportunities for innovations, but on the other side, what is the level of acceptance that the organizations you work with, like how willing are they to accept this new quote unquote innovation, right? Like, are they willing to have security in the pipeline? Why or why not, right? Like, what's your stance on this?
I guess it's started with HashiCorp Vault, with Gartner, I guess also. So Gartner has like a very strict security team, and when we introduce them to Vault, we get like a massive hit back, right? So security is not automated before, right? So you are offering me TLS as a service, secrets backend as a service, temporary access to AWS accounts, SSH one-time password, two-factor authentication, just bam, 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 and they were no, we don't need this. We don't know this, right? So they were like back off of all of these features, but they were very important actually. But like I said, the security mindset back in the days was not ready for these things to be automated actually. And that's keep me thinking about, okay, we're gonna hit like silos, like the security silos is not gonna accept this. So this was a challenge to introduce like automated solution deployed with Terraform and Vault, which replaced some of these security engineers there that working on these companies. So that was hard to implement, and yeah, that was a challenge actually. So security, I guess, is and if you look at even the reports from all around the world, most of the hacks happened due to lack of compliance and security checks. So I've been thinking about, if I can automate deployment of a resource, I should be able also to automate the security of that resource. So yeah, that's keep me going also until now. And now is the race is hard now, and it's exciting. A lot of the players on the market, and everyone is like doing a new feature and a new offering of services. So I think it's mature enough nowadays, especially with all the providers now and the stakeholders on the market. So yeah, and even on the tacos part for Terraform automation. So yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah.
It's fascinating because at the end of the day, like a lot of the technology that we're describing right now, they are answers to the problem, but then there's a lot of friction to try to get users to adopt it. And it's fascinating because you obviously can see what the problem is, but it's how does the organization perceive it? Like, how do they interpret what this problem is, and do they think it's worth solving, or are they comfortable with their controls, their nerd knobs, their point and click solutions, right? Their GUIs. And it's an interesting challenge, right? I want to ask you some questions about that later on, but let's kind of pivot to another direction here. And we've talked a lot about your past and your experience. And I think it'll be great for some of the audience to know is like, what do you use as part of your tool chain when you're developing and when you're working with organizations? What would you say are important tools that you've considered as part of your tool chain?
Yeah. Okay. That's the hard question. I guess my daily operation tools, like first a good editor, and a shout out to VS Code, actually one of the nice things that we had from Microsoft. So that's something we should
we
should
so
mention.
Much in the last 3 years.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. So VS Code was just the god tool, actually, one tool to rule them all. And then I have like I guess I have like Terraform extension back that I can share with you guys, and this like a back of extension that I use daily on VS Code. That's important for me. And let me paste it actually, and you can take it. So
yeah,
I'm putting on chat. Yeah, so this is like extension back I work every day with, and And also I work with AWS CLI, of course, most of the time. And there is also AWS Vault, which is a nice tool. And also at Global DataNet, we have like a workflow, a daily workflow for developers on the infrastructure as a code. So we, even with the AWS credentials, we don't put them like blank text. That's important. And this is advice I give to everyone. So just use a tool like AWS Vault. And there is another tool that it also can read environment variables from keychain or Windows, I think credential manager. So you even, so that's why we talk about security, and we are also try to shed some lights on developer security. So we encourage everyone just not to put your AWS credential on a plain text file. Use a tool like AWS Vault or InvitChain, I guess it's named. So yeah, that's the third one. The fourth one, which is very important, is I called it the make file killer, which is task file. So task file is a make file alternative written in Go language, which is like help me automate my daily operation on my local development machine. So whenever I need to run like a complete workflow and test flow on my machine, like a typical workflow for Terraform, like init, validate, format, plan, apply, and just some curl commands and test, maybe. Instead of typing everything like one at a time, I create like a task file, and then I call it like Terraform test, and that's it. It's gonna go through all of these steps and produce output to me. So that's important actually for me to have this task file. So and also a lot of discussion and debate was on SweetOps Slack about task file, make file, written your own Go language. And actually I've been, playing with task file until I can, now I can replace TerraGrant. TerraGrant is a very nice tool. I love it actually. I use it before, but I reach a level where I reach a level with task file, and even I know some guy who write his own Go alternative for TerraGrant. So yeah, you can even play with that. So that's a task file. I love it, and GitHub, Slack, these kind of tools, but mainly VS Code and Terraform, of course. And also, I've been looking at this. Working on a project which is like trying to have a GitHub repo with all of examples of a pipeline of Terraform. So we have GitLab CI/CD, we have GitHub Actions, we have Bitbucket pipelines, we have Jenkins, we have AWS Code Build and Code Pipeline. So we have also Circle CI, we have Travis. So all of these 7 providers for CI/CD solutions. I've been trying to make at least one example for each one on one repository. So anyone want to create just on the fly a pipeline for Terraform can do that. And also another project I've been playing with is like, it's called Terraform template base. So I'm trying to think of Terraform as a stack. So instead, I read this book. I read this book. It's called Infrastructure as a Code by Maurice. So this book is also give me some lights. It's called Infrastructure as a Code, and this book is very important, and it teaches you how to deal with infrastructure as a code from like a software engineering perspective. And I start, splitting my environment into stacks. So these stacks contain like the application stack and data stack, networking stack, management stack, and security stack. So you are reducing the blast radius of the Terraform state file. As you know, Terraform state file could be huge and contain a lot of security. And if you remove or lost the state file, you are doomed. So try to reduce the blast radius with the stacks approach here. And also, I've been playing with something called dynamic and static infrastructure. So imagine that you have a VPC, RDS, S3 bucket. All of these you can call them a static infrastructure because you deploy them once and rarely change them, right? But if you look at the ECS, AKS, Lambda, API gateway, these are dynamic things that keep changing. So I've been thinking about, just using other tools than Terraform, like SAM and like serverless framework for only this dynamic infrastructure. And it's been actually pretty good, because Terraform has some limitation with the things that keep changing a lot, especially if you have a blue-green deployment pipeline. So if you do it before, you're going to have like each time a deployment is there, you're going to have like out of sync or drift infrastructure on your Terraform code base. So you need to ignore changes on something on Terraform, right? So if you use another tool that's specially designed for a dynamic infrastructure, it's going to pay off. So I guess, yeah, that's my daily stack of tools, yeah, and projects that I'm interested on, yeah.
The stack is it's not short, so I have a couple questions here because we can go into 1 hour discussion for each tool in the stack. What was your decision making process for saying, I'm going to use? Well, I mean, the makefile is different, right? You ran into a technical hiccup, right? You got to a point where you said I can't use a task file anymore. You also ran into a Terragrant, so I understand that, but AWS SAM versus serverless framework, for example, like how do you make those decisions? Like how do you know what, I'm going to go for with AWS SAM, I'm going to invest my time into it, right?
Actually, I have the luxury of this thing thanks to my global data.net people and team behind me. So I think I make my tests actually. So I do my homework, right? So I try both solution and see which one is better. And my decision is a little biased about agnostic tools, right? So I'm trying to be agnostic as much as possible. I'm not forcing people to use anything like specific or cloud vendor or something. So that's why I always push the decision towards cloud agnostic tools, because these tools, just keep you off the cloud vendor lock-in, as you know. So that's important. Yeah, important part of my decision to be agnostic as much as possible. If not, then we will use the tool from the cloud provider. Yeah.
So here's my problem with that notion of cloud agnostic, right? Like let's just use Terraform as an example, and you can't write one template for your infrastructure that defines, you can't write one resource in your Terraform that would be agnostic to which cloud provider. So, if you want a blob storage in Azure, you have to write a separate module, a separate resource for blob. You want an S3 bucket, you need a separate resource defined in your Terraform that's defined as S3. And then there's all these nuances for each of the cloud providers. So my challenge, and I want to challenge you on this, is like, do you think cloud agnostic tools are really cloud agnostic, or do you feel like it's just more sustainable to run under one technology provider for that stack?
Okay, I guess the latter option or the latter note applies here. And of course, you need like different providers within the same tools, right? But you don't need to teach people 2 tools or 3 tools at a time, right? So you only learn the tool once, and then you will be able to just mimic or replicate what you are doing with one cloud into the other cloud, right? You just search for the alternative surface that you want to achieve, like for example, blob storage and S3 buckets, and then you should be good to go. And also, you don't need to learn like CloudFormation, and you don't need to learn Azure resource management, right? Or templates. Sorry. So, yeah. So these like 2 tools or 2 new technology that you need to learn against one. So I'm giving you the question: which one you need to learn? 2 tools or 1 tool, right?
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. I hope it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge. sometimes when we work with users, like we hear, oh, well, we use CloudFormation and we also use Azure ARM and we use Terraform. And, it's an interesting challenge because like, why did this happen? How did this manifest? Some teams use Terraform because that's their preference. Some use CloudFormation and some use ARM templates because they only work in those cloud providers. So they only want to invest in whatever stack was recommended to them. It's a weird problem we have nowadays, in my opinion.
Yeah, I deal with this every day, and I call it the great debate. So I cannot, I prefer not to enter on these debates about which tool to use, right? So I just, make it easy for myself and make my life easier just to skip these discussion and debates. But I guess I work with CloudFormation before and in Terraform. The beauty or the one killer feature of Terraform, it's multi-vendor or multi-providers. That's my number one killer feature of Terraform. Let's say I want to deploy something on AWS that contain DNS management outside of the AWS and contain monitoring outside of AWS. So you just combine three services within one template and one tool. And that's my number one, like I said, killer feature. So I only need to use one tool and one code base and, follow all these best practices like GitOps and whatever with only this one tool. And you don't have that with CloudFormation and Azure ARM, right? So with Terraform, you can have Datadog monitoring and let's say simple DNS management, and then AWS like for your application. So all of these three, for example, I'm giving just a general one, can be used with one tool. I guess that's it. So, and simplicity is the new standard, right? So if you try to make everything simple, because we have a lot of tools, a lot of things are getting complicated. So we should get back into like a simple alternative, right? If you use one tool and that tool have a huge community that support it with a lot of people working on the modules, working on the core of Terraform, working on like everything. And there is a lot of now documentation, blog posts, Reddit subreddits post there about Terraform. So yeah, you're gonna find help easy on the Terraform side. So yeah, I guess that's it. So it's a preference, like you said. If someone recommend the tool, they're gonna stick with it. But at the end, I'm seeing a lot of people migrating. So there is also people offering their services just to migrate or translate from CloudFormation into Terraform. A lot of people are making money from this, just translating back and forth. So yeah, I guess that's interesting.
Yeah, there's this one group we worked with, and they said we don't care what language we use. We're just going to transform it into our own JSON in our own key value pairs, and we'll create our own IAC language to deploy. So we don't care what everyone uses inside the organization. We'll just use our own IAC language, which I found that really fascinating. Yeah. Everyone has their own opinions on this, and I think, Mohammed, it's a lose-lose battle. You can argue every single angle possible. So
Yeah,
I think I agree with your stance there. It's a lose-lose. Okay, so let's pivot away from this because I think we've gone through quite a bit. So let's talk about cloud security. In 2017, you knew that IAC security and IAC management were going to be a thing, right? And you wanted to solve it. Now we've got CloudRail, we've got Bridgecrew, we've got Accurix, we've got a lot of these other tools around IAC security, and then now you've got NV0, Spacelift, Terraform Cloud for TACOS, right? So let me ask you this. If you had a crystal ball, what do you think are some of the challenges now about cloud that are worth tackling, and why should they matter to the business?
I guess now it's all about mandatory rules for developers, because if you have onboarding one engineer and that engineer is not aware of your security best practices and compliance, And that's that's a new comer, just just create something uh, outside of your security rules, and this has really happened. And there is, you have like inspection about the compliance like PCI DSS that you want to occur, and then you find out that you are missing some encryption at rest and encryption in transit, and you look, that's a real story, and you search what happens, and you found one engineer that deploy a Terraform code that was not scanned, and management get mad about it. So that's happened in real life. And you need, everything. Computers can fail, but a human can forget, right? The human can fail and forget, actually. And if you need to have like a specific path for the development process to go through security mindset. So you achieve this with the pipeline. That's why there is a lot of hyping and hype around this N0 scalar, doing like OBA checks, injecting bridge crew or CloudRail, or even TFSec, which is acquired recently by Aquasec, right? So all of these people trying to have their pipeline integrated with the security checks for that specific region. If you look at the enterprise use case, you can find that all of these people trying to achieve this IDSS, SOC 2, GPDR in Europe, and a lot of compliances are trying, and even the CIS benchmark, right? The normal one, the standard normal one. So everyone trying to achieve that. If you don't have a trusted security findings and artifacts and results in your pipeline or in your daily workflow, it's gonna be hard for you to achieve this, because you cannot go through everything manually and make sure this S3 buckets is encrypted. There is a KMS key, not the default one. You have your own customer KMS key. You need to make sure that your SNS topic is encrypted, your SQS, your ATS, Kubernetes, your ECS, your EBS, your AMIs, everything that you can think of need to be either encrypted, at rest, or in transit. On ALB, you need to make sure that there is ACM certificate and there is 443 port for HTTPS. And even some guys are crazy. Okay, we need to encrypt in transit after the ALB, for example, between the ALB and the ACS surfaces. So all of these requirements can easily be achieved by having a good security scanning tool, right? Back in the days, we don't have that privilege at all. And I think only the tool that I can think of was Vault. So Vault, just we deploy Vault. Vault give us like temporary access, TLS as a service, just one-time password. Like I said, just a couple of use cases that you can cover with Vault. But for security checks, I guess there was, I guess OBA was not that mature back then, but there was like, I guess one of the tools was TFSec. So shout out to them. So I guess this was one of the tools that out there that covered this case, but I'm not sure what happened with them. Not so speedy development thing. I'm not sure, but they came out Bridge Crew with their open source project Chico, and then came Cloud Rails, which I helped. Actually, I tested the beta version of Cloud Rails, and I was fascinated by the scanning of the modules. So that's something everyone is doing now, but Cloud Rails, I think, was pioneered on this one. Imagine you have a Terraform template that calling a module, right? Everyone is scanning the template without the underlying modules or any source that you are calling. So I guess these tools now mature enough to cover that use case. And now I've been offering the clients that we work with a simple pipeline, whatever tool he is using and he prefer to use, we just give him a simple security checks and also integrate with the artifact of that pipeline tools. So they will get like a nice reports of what is happening with their infrastructure. And I see a lot of people actually just hired a security engineer to cover these tasks that were finding by these security checks. So we help people get jobs and get hired actually with this simple integration with the security tool. Yeah.
It's interesting because, like, to your point, right? We didn't have this luxury, even like 2 years ago, right? Maybe there were a handful of tools out there, most of them open source, but it was someone's project because they were very passionate about it and they wanted to work on it, right? And now we, like, as a vendor space, we're taking a very serious lens at it. There's, VC money being invested into this. It's interesting. It's very fascinating to see how it continues to grow and evolve. You mentioned a point here, and it's not a really technological problem. It's more of a culture problem here. Like, would you agree that, like, now the problem is about, okay, you have these tools that automate security scanning. Are you actually doing this in all your pipelines and all your workflows? Are you preventing this ever being deployed if it has a security violation? Like, do you really do this today? Do you think that's the problem we have now, or that's the challenge from a security perspective?
To be completely honest with you, it's up to the client. I guess for startups and like small to medium business, we don't block anything, right? So blocking the deployment is well known for enterprises. So to be honest, I treat it how the client, size and how the client is looking at the deployment. I've been working with enterprise that enforce you to block the deployment if it's like have some security findings or not following a best practice or something. But for small clients, no. I personally, I don't block anything. Actually, I just send them a report, and they should worry about it later. I'm not sure. It's their problem, right? But if you just keep these rapid development clients, right? So they are working like on a daily deployments, lot of features. So you cannot just block them each time, right? So they need to get an MVP very quickly. They need to show it to the world, and then later they can worry about security, I guess. But now, if you can, but this is the difference. On the past, you cannot have a security overview when you're developing your MVP, but now you can. Okay, you need to have to deploy a quick MVP. There you go, but also keep an eye on the security findings that you need to invest some time and effort and money on this later, and the sooner better than later, right? So that's my advice to all of these people. But like I said before, enterprise have the luxury to just create a dedicated team about something, right? So yeah, and to be honest, again, I don't block anything for now, at least. So because it's just you don't want to have the same conflict between developers and operation, right? So we are trying DevOps just to solve all of our problems. We don't need to get back and prevent them from deploying something. But at least now you're gonna have a good security reports, which wasn't there back in the days.
It's by the way, I have to agree with what you're saying here, because what we've seen also with startups when they're very young, and when compliance is not a play, right? Okay, like if you're a startup in a very regulated industry, whether you're healthcare or you're dealing with payment finances, then it's a little different, right? You need to block stuff from going into production for your customers. It's your responsibility. But when you're dealing with, I don't know, data from your customer's Apple Watch and tracking how many steps they're taking, it's a little different, It's a little different than how security is looked at. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But because of that, like, the concept of DevSecOps gets introduced at a different stage depending on what your needs are at that point. And I'm trying to paraphrase what you're saying. Is that what would be a good summary of it?
Yeah, I guess, and I love to call it actually DevOps is now already the new DevSecOps, right? So everyone is putting words inside that term, but I guess now if I want to hire a DevOps engineer, the first thing I will look into now is security. How is he looking into security? How he is thinking about solving a security problem. I maybe one of the question is all about how to make sure your deployment is secure and your solution and architect on AWS is following a compliance or a best practice for security. So I guess yeah, DevSecOps is the new standard now, and it's called DevOps already. So that's the idea.
It'll be funny if someone comes up with a new term. Sometimes people say that product managers should be involved into DevOps. So maybe it's DevSecProdOps.
Yeah.
But anyways, so let's talk about more interesting topics. I think this would be more interesting to you. But this word GitOps is thrown a lot in this space, right? What does it mean to you? Yeah, let's start there.
Okay, I guess one of the greatest mankind invention after the kernel, the Linux kernel, is the Git, right? And it's the irony, it was from the same person. So Linus Travelers create the kernel and the Git for us. So I guess it's important as the Linux kernel. So I compare the importance of both Git and kernel as the same level because they solve two unique problems and for us and use cases. And everyone is knowing Git, right? So if you ask like 100 developer, do you know Terraform or Git? He will answer, most of them gonna say Git, right? So the Git is very popular. It's like ABC of computer engineering now and computer science, right? So everyone is doing Git. And if you can apply the Git methodology into your code base for infrastructure as a code, I guess that's one of my definition to deal with infrastructure as a code base with the daily experience you are doing with Git. You make sure that you are tracking your files, you are creating pull requests, you are having branching strategy, following a flow Git methodology or approach. If you are fancy enough to use a flow Git approach. So yeah, GitOps, it's all about using, for me at least, using my daily infrastructure as a code the same way I do with other code with Git. For example, I have a code review session with my senior engineers. I do like make sure that I'm following a branching strategy. My commits should follow a good practice, like everything is clear. And, just throwing pull requests each time you are creating a feature. So yeah, I cannot emphasize about how important GitOps is for infrastructure as a code developers. And as you know, if you have everything with GitOps, you're gonna have like push to production, right? So if we look at about onto the Terraform side or infrastructure as the code side, you are saying push to deployment the solution, right? So if you need to add anything to the architect that you are having, or if you need to improve something, you just create a commit, push it, merge it. If you have another branch, create a pull request review, maybe your pipeline gonna trigger automatically based on a webhook. You're gonna have all these fancy stuff with Terraform, like you need plan, security checks, maybe even cost estimation. And there is also Slack notification, a fancy one with all the planning and blah, blah, blah. That's it. Just one commit and one push and everything is automated. So yeah, imagine that. Yeah, that's nice to have.
It's funny because, if you think about the origin of GitOps, the people that coined it, like, they really tightly coupled the concept of doing infrastructure as code the same way people have been doing, developing code with Git, right? And with DevOps, or the concepts around DevOps. But they call it GitOps, and they call it specifically GitOps for infrastructure as code, so that they could say infrastructure as code needs to now follow the same train as DevOps. But they also said, and it was really interesting, they tightly couple it to infrastructure as code from Kubernetes. And
Yeah,
what are your thoughts about that?
yeah, I disagree with that. And
Yeah.
I think GitOps can be applied to any tool or technology, especially any declarative infrastructure, right? Like Ansible or Terraform or Pulumi or even CDK, anything that can be declarative and written like a simple English, which is not a programming language that you are doing for software engineering, can be do with GitOps actually. I think GitOps is all about, my initial thoughts, is all about having everything as a code. Even your CI/CD can be a Git version code base, right? So I have this nice module that we are using. It's called Terraform CI/CD on AWS, which we use code build, code pipeline, some SNS notification, even AWS chatbot for sending chat into Slack. So this is on a one module as a one package, and it's versions, and it's dealt with as a code base. Whenever I want to deploy an instance or a solution of this CI/CD, I just just push the and commit push, and then run Terraform apply, and that's it. So GitOps, it's all about having everything as a code, right? And you apply the same Git operation like pull request, code review, merging, rebasing, squash, all of this stuff that you are doing daily. And I guess that's it. And it's not need to be just tied with Kubernetes or only applied to Kubernetes. No, I disagree with this. And I guess you can apply whatever your tool is, even CloudFormation or this fancy CDK stuff nowadays, right? So you can do that also.
Yeah, I think the spirit of GitOps, it makes a lot of sense, right? Apply development practices to infrastructure as code. I think it's very challenging when you start saying very specific things about what is considered GitOps and what isn't. And it's I'm not going to say dangerous, but it might be problematic for a lot of people. With what you described, shouldn't that also be considered GitOps, for example? And I think it should. So I'm going to ask for more opinions about this, okay? Because I like asking the people we're interviewing the opinions, but infrastructure as code has become also its own, what do you call, variety, flavors, options. You can do lower level infrastructure as code with Helm charts, with Kubernetes. You can use things like Crossplane to manage more of your infrastructure as code in Kubernetes. You can use Terraform, you can use AWS CDK, you use Pulumi. What's your opinion about all of this? Where do you think people should kind of settle down and say, look, this is where you should start. This is how you expand. This is where you settle down into as using as your infrastructure as code stack.
Okay, that's a hard question. And I guess you need to first admire the benefits and know the benefits of automation, right? My main concern is, are you aware of the DevOps methodology and the DevOps benefits and the DevOps culture? That's my questions. Are you aware of automation value to your project? If you are aware to that, then it's up to you what's the tooling you are using. Use the tool that you prefer. Actually, I don't want anyone, moving from CloudFormation to try Terraform and vice versa. If you are, proficient with one tool and you use it like a charm, that's up to you. Okay. I don't want anyone just to switching around. But there is always let's say not a best practice. There is no best practice at all for anything. There is a good patterns and bad patterns, right? So just look for the good patterns on infrastructure and the code and see what people and enterprises and all of these company is using, which is mainly Terraform, to be honest. And then it's up to you whether you want to proceed their way or just move on on your pace and way. So the important stuff is not the tool, it's the benefits of the tool, right? I see, I know people doing everything with Ansible until now. So Ansible is just a configuration language, but they are using Ansible for instead of Terraform, instead of CloudFormation, instead of CDK, instead of all of these tools. Even they are using it for deploying, even instead of kubectl, and all of it's just one tool. It's Ansible. Why? Because they know Ansible inside out. They are professional with Ansible, so they don't have the time and to move out into another tool. That's fine with me. Okay, use the tool that you prefer, even your bash scripts. If you have like a, a bash
I have a
script
story,
for
by the
deploy
way.
and
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Yeah, like I said, yeah, it's just use whatever tool you prefer. Just know the benefits of automation and the pipeline and why you need to automate everything with the pipeline. Just think of having a solid pipeline. That's the main idea. If anyone came out with something from this meeting, just think of having and design a good pipeline for your deployment. This pipeline can integrate different tools like Helm charts, kubectl, AKS CTL, AWS CLI, Terraform, CloudFormation. Use all the tools just within the one pipeline that orchestrate everything for you. Make sure that your pipeline have security checks, have a notification to know everything what's happening. Make sure it's can tolerate failure and go through failure, and think of continuous delivery and continuous deployment. Know the difference between these two. It's important to know the difference. And yeah, I guess you're gonna be in good hands. Yeah.
I had a funny story, and I think it kind of speaks to what you're describing. But we were talking to this group, and they've gone on like Hashi Talks. They talk about all the things they did, from changing from a monolithic Terraform to using templates to X, Y, and Z. And then when you dig into it, you're like, wait, but how do they orchestrate the deployment, right? And then they look down and they say, oh, we use a bash script. And but you hear that story and you can laugh at it, right? Everyone would laugh at it. But the reality is, you're absolutely right. I think you're on. I think you're right. Start with what DevOps means: continuous integration, continuous delivery. Then figure out what tools you're comfortable with, what things you've done in the past, and what you think at an expert level you can kind of get going very quickly. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with using a bash script. I don't think you should be judged. I mean, it's funny, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's it, right? That's what it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. Well, awesome, Mohammed. I've gone through quite a bit. Do you have any advice? I want to speak to like a cloud, someone who wants to get into cloud security. Do you have any advice around how to approach this? Because cloud security 5 years ago was very different to what it is now. It's very complex now, and the ecosystem has grown significantly. So what would be some of your advice for someone who wants to go into cloud security?
Yeah, I guess you need to know that's one of the hardest topics that you're gonna put yourself into. So if security need you to have a wide knowledge versus deep, right? So if we say I'm a software engineering, I need to know a deep knowledge about something. But if you are a security engineer, you need to have the wide, right? The wide versus deep. So you need to have a good wide background of how cloud is working, what services it's offering. And then you need to know at a level what security can benefit at each of the OSI. Just go back to the basics, right? The OSI model, the 7-layer model, the popular one. Just know the cloud, how operate at each level, right? And know what security you can accomplish at each level. If you are talking about the application, okay, I need to make sure that my application layer 7 is secure. Okay, I need to look into WAF, into ALB, into CloudFront, all of this stuff. DNS, I need to know how to make DNS secure by authoritative DNS sec, make everything secure on the DNS. Then I go a little deeper into, like, for example, layer 4 session. Okay, there is an NLP. I need to make sure that the port is closed, and then move into like the operating system or the container. Just know best practice for security on the container, and that's it. For RDS, make sure that your database is secure with configuration and security best practices, and also encryption at rest, encryption in transit, all of this stuff. Just think of a top-down approach when you think about security in the cloud. Top-down, start with the top, and then go deeper into the deeper layers. I guess this is gonna give you an overview, and then you need to know some sort of like automation stuff, like at least know the DevOps basics and how you can use a pipeline for running security checks, and look at these tools that are like policy as a code, security checks. So there is like policies and there is security checks. Know the difference between the two. Don't mix them up. And yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah, and yeah, just reach me if you achieve this.
Yeah. So I will send everyone your cell phone number in case they have more questions. But I'm just kidding. But no, this is great, Mohammed. Thank you so much. As always, we're gonna be posting your LinkedIn. So if anyone has any career advice, is it okay if they reach out to you if they have any questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's totally fine. Yeah.
Awesome.
I love to give back to community, actually, because we steal all the time from community. So let's give something back, right?
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same. Like it's so niche, and then everyone just we're all still trying to figure it out. So I agree.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, Mohammed. Thank you for your time. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure. And it was helpful and challenging, actually, a little